Hi, everyone. Vicky Essebag and Gretton here with our 13th Power Burst. And we have a very special question for you today. Just a reminder that these Power Burst questions some of them originate in the book, Relationspaces, a solution-focused handbook for parents. And some of them, while they might originate in the book, Tara and I sort of fabricate these questions together as we have these marvelous conversations. And we try to keep the responses very short for you. So we're going to do the same today. So the question today is, what is the desired outcome of reframing, adapting, and managing an emotionally fraught interaction? So, Tara and I, we were talking about how sometimes we're having feelings about engaging with someone, right? And they may sometimes be strong feelings. Maybe we're feeling frustrated about something, or maybe we're feeling angry or whatever. And this could be with our children, it could be with our colleagues, with our friends, our family. And sometimes we engage in these conversations, but we're not necessarily thinking straight about how to have the conversation in the moment, because it can be very challenging. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tara, and Tara's going to share an excellent example with us.
Thanks, Vicky. Yes, it's just really interesting as we started our conversation today, and I was like, oh, I can think of a little example that happened this morning. Yeah, so I had an interaction with one of my children, and this was based on some feelings that I was experiencing in relation to a situation that had just not great kind of interactions between me and my child, and some sort of distance, and I was finding that quite challenging. And I kind of got a sense there was stuff going on. But it was just kind of bubbling a little bit, and I was becoming quite frustrated with the situation. And, we are wonderful at amplifying and exaggerating stories in our own heads. So this was definitely what was happening. I was thinking about it a lot, and I was being pretty kind of emotional about it on the inside in my thoughts. And so I felt the time had kind of come that I would address it with them. So, and I seem to do this quite, the time for me to do these types of things is in the morning. I'm a real morning person, and I'm like, right, okay, let's address this. So fortunately, we have 2 flights of stairs in our house. So I had that real sort of gut and emotional kind of rise, and I could sort of feel that, my emotional cup in relation to this was really kind of, as I said, sort of bubbling over. But as I kind of walked down the stairs, I started to think about, what are my hopes for and from this conversation? What's the desired outcome here? What am I hoping for? Actually, what will be different afterwards? And actually, I'm like, I just want to be able to spend some more time with them, and I want to have some sense of what's going on for them. So that was really helpful for me to think about, what are my hopes from this conversation? So in that, it enabled me to think about, it sort of softened. Already I could kind of feel the dial, turning down on the sort of emotional rumblings when I thought about what I wanted to be different from this conversation. So with that, the things that I initially wanted to say, that Vicky was talking about, how often we think we need to give an introduction. I've been thinking about this, and I've noticed that this is happening and that's not happening. And, and usually a lot of the time, these frustrations and these introductions and these kind of emotions are because we care. you know, it's because we care about that person and we want things to be better. But sometimes that sort of emotional care can get in the way of our delivery. So thinking about what I wanted to be different from it then enabled me to think a little bit more clearly about how I wanted to approach it. So as I approached, I was, you know, still feeling kind of quite emotional, but I decided to start with just sort of making gentle reference. I can see things have been a bit challenging. You know, just want you to know that we're here for you if you want to talk about it. And from that, they gave a little bit of context, and then I started to say what I've noticed about how they manage situations in the past. So you know, if I was completely honest, I'm not sure that that was completely planned, but I think because I thought about what I wanted to be different from it, what were my intentions of even having this conversation with them, it enabled me to think differently in how I approached it. So I shared with them, actually, you know, how you've managed situations like this in the past. The way that you do that is really amazing. And I gave some details and description of what I had noticed. And from that, the difference to, you know, how they softened and were smiling, and from that we were able to have a bit more of a conversation about the situation, and I was also able to say some things that I hoped from our perspective might be different, that was, you know, potentially could have been hard to hear, but yeah, so that's a kind of small example of I haven't obviously gone into all of the details because it's, you know, a confidential conversation with my child, but hopefully that gives some idea of, you know, how we can adapt, you know, how we can, we were talking about how dynamic humans are, you know, how versatile, and how we can have that sort
Excuse me,
of...
Tara, my puppy is playing with their brain toy and it's making a lot of noise. Do you hear it actually?
Can't hear it at all.
Oh, okay. So then maybe I don't need to be concerned about it. I was going to take it
Oh,
away from her.
no, and it was lovely to see her as well. Welcome to Daisy.
Yes, yes.
But
So,
yeah,
you
what
know,
would you add to that in terms of...
Tara,
Yeah.
so here's the thing is, I love the way that, are you sure you don't hear that? It's very loud.
I didn't hear it. That, no, seriously. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. So I love the way that you completely skirted past the problems that were facing you in the moment, right? You were feeling emotionally impacted. You knew that you were upset, and you knew that there were issues that had to be dealt with, and that the other person was experiencing concerns, and that you had to somehow deal with this problem. And yet you were able to completely bypass all of that and go directly to the individual's strengths. You know, how they've coped in the past, how they've been successful, the sorts of things that they did to be successful, and how they managed themselves. And so you went to that place of hope immediately, and which inspired the individual and completely changed the course of conversation. And I think that that was brilliant, right? Because you completely, that introduction that you spoke about, how sometimes we feel we have to introduce things in conversation. Well, this is how I'm feeling, and this is the problem, and so on. You know, it really wouldn't have, all it would have done might have been to alienate the person even more, or to exacerbate the problem. But you effectively just walked right by that. I also love the way that you got a hold of your emotions, right? So when we're feeling overly emotional, that's our reptile brain talking, it's our amygdala, and we just flare up right? And it's very, very hard to gain control of that and move to the neocortex where we can think clearly and problem solve and do all of those things. You essentially did that while walking down the stairs. True, it was 2
2
flights.
flights.
Having said that, that's still pretty darn good that you're able to accomplish moving from the amygdala to the neocortex in 2 flights of stairs. What I would recommend for most people to do, if they're not able to accomplish that, is feel free to take the time you need to gain control of your emotions. If it's an hour, a few hours, if it's a day, if you only actually interact with a person the following day, it's okay, as long as you do get back to it. But it's really important to gain control of one's emotions so that we can think more clearly, so that we can be more proactive and engage in the kind of conversation that we would benefit from and that the person we're communicating with would benefit from. So I think this is a perfect example, Tara, because we all experience these kinds of feelings and the stress that comes with that when we are interacting with other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we feel like we have to deal with it in the moment when we're feeling upset or angry or frustrated. And you know what? We don't have to deal with it in the moment. We can take the time we need to sort it out for ourselves and figure out what we think will be better in the conversation, right? And so that we can approach it differently when we do come to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And what you're saying, really makes me think about, we can kind of catch ourselves, when we've got that kind of awareness. We often can feel sort of, I said, I can feel that kind of rising emotion, and it was sort of in my chest. And so I, felt that I was able to catch myself at that moment. And then invite something different, and to not go in there sort of solely with that sort of emotional response, but to think about, to sort of catch it, and to think about, what are my intentions here? What is the desired outcome of this conversation? What do I really, really care about? And actually what I care about is spending time with my child and having some insight into what's going on for them. However, if I'd gone in with that emotion and with that and acted on that in the moment, my delivery would have told a different story. My delivery probably would have been, and then I would have lost them. So I think we can just invite people to kind of notice, where does it show up for you? Where does that sort of emotional or what physical sign, where does it show up for you, where you can kind of catch yourself, and whether you're able to sort of adapt, to reframe in that moment, and that sort of versatility that we have as humans, or whether, as you're saying, actually I need to kind of take some time and go off and do something. I'll go and walk the dog. I'll go and, work out in the gym. I'll go to work. I'll think about this, and then, I'll think about what I want to say, and then approach it. But I think, that real importance that so often in relationships, these conversations are based on something that we really care about.
Yes, and also based on our presence of mind to empathize with what the other person might be going through.
Yeah, so important.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Daisy, for joining us too.
And thank you to all of our listeners.
Yeah.
And we invite you to think about this question for yourself, and please write your comments to us. Let us know what you're thinking about, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. See you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.